Hi, Lauren.
Hi, Kelly. How are you?
I am well. I'm currently waiting for a delivery of soda.
Oh, I miss those days.
You don't have delivery where you are?
I mean, they have delivery in Colorado, but it's not really like a Postmates situation. It's more like here's Amazon again. It's not the
Well,
same. We don't
I,
have bodegas. How do you
you
live
don't
without a
have
bod?
bodegas?
No, how do you live without a bodega?
I don't know.
I know. Strange world out here.
We are going to get started in just a couple minutes, giving people time. And there's my soda delivery,
Hey,
Lauren. I will be right back.
the soda is here. Well, while Kelly is answering her Postmates for soda, which is a great thing to have delivered, I just want to say hi to everyone. Those of you who are tuning in now, I'm Lauren Rankin. I am a board member of AS4, and I'm the author of the forthcoming book, Bodies on the Line at the Front Lines of the Fight to Protect Abortion in America. I know a lot about abortion. I don't know everything. So ask me your questions and I will do my best to answer them. If I don't know an answer, I will tell you that because I'm not going to lie. So please hit me with what you got. I know it's really confusing and scary right now, especially if you're in a state that's already really restrictive, but we're going to get into all that and we're going to now Kelly has her soda, so we're really ready to go. Um,
Thank you for your
so
patience. Yes, it's so cold here in New York City. I don't know how many people are in New York, but it's so cold. And I was out running errands already, and I got home and I was thirsty and I wanted soda, and I just decided to indulge myself and order it. And of course, I did that an hour ago, and it timed out just perfectly to be delivered right as we're starting.
self-care is not selfish.
Self care is not
Drink
self.
that soda.
So as I do that, let me just say I am Kelly Overby. I am the executive director of AS4. We are a nonprofit that works to eradicate stigma against abortion, and we work at the intersection of advocacy and the arts. Lauren is one of our board members. I heard you introducing yourself.
I was just
Um,
yapping.
you were just yapping. Well, let me read your little bio here. Lauren Rankin is a writer, activist, and expert in abortion rights in the US. She has written for the Washington Post, The Cut, Fast Company, Teen Vogue, that's very cool, Health Magazine, NBC News, Refinery 29, Rolling Stone, and many more. Her debut book, Bodies on the Line at the Front Lines of the Fight to Protect Abortion in America, is out on April 5th, 2022, and is currently available for pre order. She's also appeared on Sirius XM, the BBC, the Times of London Radio, CTV News, CBC Radio, BuzzFeed News, and more, and has been a featured speaker at places like Rutgers and Cornell universities. She served as a volunteer clinic escort at a New Jersey abortion clinic from 2014 to 2020 and is a board member of AS4. That's us. She received her Master of Arts in Women's Gender Studies from Rutgers University. And though she does not have this listed, I will tell you that she and I both are alums from Northwestern University.
Go cats.
Go Wildcats.
Any of you are wildcats out there, let us know.
So this is a very casual, easygoing, ask me anything, and by me I mean Lauren, about abortion, and she will endeavor to answer you or direct you to the place where you can find that answer. I guess really nothing's off limits. I will be receiving the questions in the Q&A. So if you have a question, please submit it there. The chat is disabled. It's just easier to do it this way. So please submit whatever questions you have. The first thing that I have here, knowing as much as you know, Lauren, are you as scared as most of us are?
Good question. I Yes. Yes, I'm not going to lie to you. That's what I said. I'm not going to lie to you. Yes, it is a scary time. I think where I end up on this is I've already accepted that Roe versus Wade is going to be overturned. If you haven't accepted that yet, that's okay. I encourage you to get there because it's going to happen, whether it happens in name or they gut it in reality. Roe is essentially dead. What I do think is hopeful about this moment is that it offers us a sort of new chance to think outside the box. Roe was always the floor and never the ceiling. And just because abortion has been legal in this country for nearly 50 years, that doesn't mean there haven't been untold obstacles to it. And a lot of folks know what that is. So I think being scared is okay. It's an understandable, and I would argue normal and conscientious response to the moment that we're in. But instead of dwelling in that fear, let's take that fear and come together and find ways to solve the problem. Because just because abortion might become illegal in your state, depending on where you are, it won't necessarily be illegal in all of them. And there's a lot that we can do together.
That's
Good
great.
question.
I'm seeing some other questions come in. Would it be helpful to have rank and file folks ordering Mephi and Miso for others to be able to have them stockpiled? That's one. This is a three-part question. What is the expiration date? And at some point, can we be activated to then hand over our pills to those in need?
This is another good question. So for folks who don't know what Mify and Miso are, I will explain. Mifepristone and Misoprostol are two different medications that form the total of medication abortion. There's a series of pills that you can take up to 10, 12 weeks typically is considered safe to induce an abortion. And a lot of abortions in this country aren't actually surgical, but they're done by medication abortion. So it is possible. The FDA recently finally permanently relaxed standards that said that you can actually get medication abortion delivered to your home, that you don't have to go to a clinic to get it, which is a massive duh. I mean, why would you have to do that? But that was the law for a long time. So now, if you're in a state like mine, Colorado, if you're in a state like New York, you can very easily get a medication abortion shipped to your home. There are some states where they've already restricted this, so that might be difficult to do. I'm going to offer a word of caution here about ordering Mifepristone and Misoprostol online to stockpile for other people. And I'm doing that for several reasons. One, I don't want to encourage anybody to break the law. So you can legally order Mifepristone and Misoprostol for yourself. If you feel like you at some point might ever become pregnant and want to have that option, I say do it now. You can buy it now. You do not have to be pregnant. Dr. Rebecca Gomperts, who runs Aid Access, makes it really easy to just order this online. You can order it and have it shipped to your door, and it's safe. It comes with a bunch of instructions. The expiration date for Mify and Miso depends on when you receive the medication. I'm not entirely sure of that, but I will look and see if I can find the answer for you. But we cannot be mass handing this out to people for several reasons. One, again, that is illegal. And I don't encourage people to do illegal things. Two, just because someone is pregnant and wants to have an abortion with medication abortion doesn't mean they necessarily are a good candidate. And it might not be a great idea to give them the medication, because then whatever might happen to them, and again, complications are extremely low. This is very safe. But if for some reason they happen to be one of those people who has a complication, you are directly implicated in that. So I think instead of stockpiling for other people, we should be stockpiling for ourselves. Get yourself some pills, buy them online. You can get several doses if you want. I don't believe you can get them at the same time, but through Aid Access, it's only $150. And if you can't afford that, they'll help you afford that. So that is the best answer I can give you right now.
Dr. Rebecca Gomperts, who runs Aid Access, is supposed to join us here during this webinar. She's in the Netherlands. anything can happen.
She's also like trying to save abortion worldwide, so
She's
she might
busy.
be a little busy.
She's busy, but she will join us at one point. I have a few more questions coming in. I see you all. There is one more about Miffy Miso that I think I'd like to move to quickly since we're on that subject.
Sure.
Um, the question is, are they widely enough available to meet demand? And if not, are you concerned about the off-label use of other medications to induce abortion? How risky is that? How complicated are those medications to self-administer and monitor properly?
These are very good questions. I'm very impressed. Wow. I was like, kind of expecting like, what does Rose say? So I'm gonna pull up my big girl pants here. Get ready. So yes, Miffy and Miso are very widely available. Mifepristone, which was approved by the FDA in 2000, is specifically to induce an abortion, but misoprostol is used for so many other kinds of issues like miscarriage. I think there's cardiac issues, lots of things. Misoprostol is not going anywhere, and you can have an abortion simply with miso. I am not an expert on self-managed abortion through non-medication abortion means, but I will say this. Folks have been having abortions since the beginning of time. And there are actually a lot of like medicinal and herbal ways to do that. I have on my back here, which I'm not really going to show you because I don't want to get naked on Zoom, a tattoo of Queen Anne's lace, which is a weed that has been used for centuries to induce abortion. I'm less concerned right now that people are going to be flocking to lots of other things if we can make clear that they can get medication abortion. People are going to do whatever they have to do if they don't know they can get it. So it's really imperative that all of us make clear and follow our friends at Shout Your Abortion's lead. Abortion pills are everywhere. You can get them. You can get them now. They are safe. They are easy to access. So it's less likely that someone's going to be doing something that could be really harmful if they know that they have this safe option available.
That's great. Okay, can you help us with some talking points to share with others about how abortion serves as a form of healthcare?
Yes. Abortion is healthcare. So abortion is, you can start with this. Abortion is incredibly common. 1 in 4 women and non-binary and trans, we don't have good language or statistics on who, not us here, but there actually is not good research on non-women, so trans men and non-binary folks who have abortions, but they do exist. But 1 in 4 women and much more inclusive frame will have an abortion in this country. It's extremely common. Abortion is 14 times safer than childbirth. Abortion is safer than knee surgery. Yes, kids, that's right. If you've had knee surgery, your life was more at risk than if you've had an abortion. And abortion has been happening, as I said, since the beginning of time, until, this is the big thing that people don't know, until the late 19th century, abortion was totally legal in the US. Nobody gave a crap. It was something that was performed by midwives and local, like, awesome ladies in the village. And once, if you know who Anthony Comstock is, he just hated porn and women generally. But once he started to rise and the medical profession actually realized, hey, there's money to be made in this stuff, and it's not okay that we're not the ones who do it, then it became criminalized. So abortion was legal until the point of quickening, until the late 19th century. So it's been a form of healthcare in this country before, and it will always be. The question is whether it's going to be legal and accessible or not. And that we don't have control over. Well, the accessible part, but not legal.
Great. Well, not great, but
yeah.
But thank you. Could you break down SB 8 or give an overview about the situation in Texas? Do you have any good sources to recommend on the subject?
Good question. So SB 8, I'm sure many of you are aware, but if you're not, SB 8 was a devilishly ingenious bill that Texas Republicans came up with to try and ban abortion without violating Roe. And so SB 8, which is in effect, went into effect September 1st, bans abortions at 6 weeks before most people even know they're pregnant. So it's a basically a total abortion ban. And the thing they did to try to weasel around it, around Roe basically says states cannot restrict abortion. States can't do that before the point of fetal viability, which is typically 24 to 28 weeks. Now, the court in 1992 was like, yeah, you can actually. In Planned Parenthood v. Casey, they said you can restrict an abortion if you're a state, but not if you place an undue burden on the person seeking an abortion. If anyone out there knows what an undue burden is, please let us know, because none of us have a damn clue. Since apparently all of these things are not constituting undue burdens. But so what happened is Texas came up with this idea, a specific legislator there came up with the idea to have individual citizens sue abortion providers if they violate the 6-week ban, which is bonkers.
It's
but
vigilantism, basically.
The what?
Vigilantism.
Oh yeah, I mean, completely. I mean, if you actually, and Gavin Newsom, and the governor of California, has tried to do this there with guns, which I say meet fire with fire, but basically what this does is if someone has an abortion after 6 weeks, or someone thinks someone has an abortion after 6 weeks, that opens not just the provider, but everyone in that person's circle up to criminalization. And they could face a minimum of a $10,000 fine. That's a minimum. They could pay who knows how much out of that. And we haven't really seen any of those lawsuits happen yet because, spoiler alert, they're dumb. But the Supreme Court had a chance to intervene. This law is obviously unconstitutional and totally violates Roe. And as many of you know, they refused to do so. So the law is technically in effect. They said that abortion providers can still try to sue to block the law if they want, but that's down the line. So for now, it's in effect. Abortions are illegal after 6 weeks in Texas. And if you want to really focus on how to help people in Texas, some good places to go, Fund Texas Choice. It's an organization we have donated to here at Is4. They help provide patients with logistical support to get out of state, especially now. The TEA Fund, Texas Equal Action Fund, the Lilith Fund, all of these funds in Texas are doing the work now of helping people get out of state. So those are the places that you should be putting your money and your time, not in like random middle-aged white ladies on Facebook being like, I'm going to have an underground railroad. Like, no, we're not doing that. Give money to the people who know what they're doing.
For sure. Here's another question about medication abortion, wondering if it's covered by Medicaid in any states. And again, the question, could someone in those states order some to have on hand, stockpile? Yes, but for others, maybe not. If it's covered by Medicaid and free instead of $150, I guess trying to save people money. Is that a thing that can be done?
Yes. So abortion is federally, the Hyde Amendment bars federal funding for abortion care. So if you're in the Peace Corps, if you're in the military, if you serve our country in any sort of way, you can't have to pay for an abortion on your own. But there are 15 states, I believe it's now 16, that provide Medicaid funding for abortion. New Jersey is one of them. New York is one of them. California is one of them. And medication abortion is covered by those states. Yes. So in order to obtain that, you have to go through your traditional system with the doctor and Medicaid coverage and all that. But if you don't want to go through that system and you still want to purchase medication abortion, it's legal to do so. And once again, the stockpiling for others thing, stockpile for yourselves. That's legal. And the more people who stockpile for themselves, the more we have for ourselves when we need it. But yes, medication abortion and surgical abortion are covered by Medicaid in select states. And there's a real effort to try and end the federal ban. But I don't know if any of you have been paying attention, but things are not great in Congress right now. So that doesn't look like it's going anywhere. So in the meantime, for the vast majority of Americans who live in states without Medicaid coverage of abortion, it's best to, purchase it in whatever way you can. And aid access and other abortion funds will help you pay for it if you can't. So know that.
Are abortion pills available in every state? And what happens if the state bans the mailing of them?
Great question. Yes, they are available in every state, and some states have already banned telemedicine for abortion, like Texas. So if the state has banned that, I believe right now that they haven't formally banned the mailing of the pills. I don't quote me on that, but it's another issue, right? You need to get to that person the way that you can safely and legally. So it might be bringing them across the border. It might be, whatever way we can find. But right now, as of right now, you can you can access medication abortion in every single state and Puerto Rico and Guam on certain conditions.
Awesome. So Ruth Bader Ginsburg wasn't concerned about women who could afford an abortion. What can we do to make it easier for women who cannot afford one by either surgery or medication?
Great question. Ruth was great. Not perfect. No one is. But I don't know that it was that she wasn't concerned about that, as it wasn't like her first and foremost priority. Because I think, and especially in writing my book, something that I've really learned is I think a lot of people, I'm not one of them, I'm 36, but a lot of people who were leading this fight in the 60s and 70s kind of thought like, cool, we did it. Thank God. And it's hard to see what's coming down the line, right? But what we can do to make it easier for folks who cannot have an abortion, donate, put your money where your mouth is. So if you aren't aware, there's something called the National Network of Abortion Funds. And this is a national coalition of individual abortion funds. We've already mentioned some, and I believe Kelly has put them in the chat for you. In Texas.
The first one you mentioned, was it Fund Texas Choice?
Yes, Fund Texas Choice. So there are abortion funds, and I'm pretty sure every single state. So if you want, I'm going to put it in the chat for you as well. But if you want you can fund really any state. I fund several abortion funds personally, but maybe you want to find one locally, right? Maybe you want to find one that's in your community. So there are abortion funds that you can donate to. And the best thing you can do, if you're able, is to become a monthly donor, because that way you can actually help sustain that fund. There are some funds like the ARC Southeast. Our friends at ARC Southeast, who we've also funded before, they're at a fund that covers the entire region, which is great. So if you're in Texas, Georgia, not Texas, if you're in Georgia, Mississippi, Alabama, anywhere, and you get pregnant and shit, they'll help you figure out all of the things. So I'm going to put in the chat for you. This is the link to the site for the National Network of Abortion Funds, and this is a list of their funds. So they break it down for you by state. They have some internationally too. Find one, find several, and give them your money. And that is the way that we can ensure that abortion stays affordable and accessible for folks. Because without that, without money, what do you have? Dreams.
Indeed. Indeed. We are sort of coming to the end of the questions that are written out so far. Eric Gilliland wants to know how tall you are and how we all feel about the word webinar.
Eric, hey, love you, buddy. I miss you. It's been a really long time since I've seen you. I am very short. I am, if I'm giving myself a little oomph, 5'1". But I like to think that I make up for that with pep and vigor. And the word webinar is dumb and makes me feel like I have a corporate job again, which I will never do. But this is like a conversation, right? We're just conversing. If anyone has any more questions, like throw them at me. I'm happy to answer.
Offered another good resource for Texas women, needabortion.org. Do you know?
Yes, I do. Needabortion.org is a great source for help. Whoa, my camera just really zoomed in. That'll help you find a clinic near you. And especially in Texas, there are so many great places that you can fund. But yeah, go to needabortion.org if you want to learn exactly where to put your money that I haven't listed for you now. Great resource. Thank you, whoever shared that.
It's a webinar name, so I'm not sure who it is, but
Thank
thank
you, webinar name.
um, someone else has asked, are there any books or resources that you recommend, please?
Well, since you asked, anonymous person, I have a book coming out in April, and my mom says it's really good. So, um, I wrote this book, Bodies on the Line at the Front Lines of the Fight to Protect Abortion in America. I put the link, I'm pretty sure, it's not showing up as a link, but put the link in the chat. I wrote this book sort of as a history and chronicle of an untold story in the abortion rights movement from the point of view of clinic escorting. If you don't know what a clinic escort is, I can tell you more about that too. But really, from the beginning of legal abortion in this country, it's been under attack directly at clinics. And it hasn't been the Supreme Court that saved us. It hasn't been the government. It hasn't been legal elected officials. It's been everyday people who found a way to do something. So if you want to pre-order that, it will make my mom really happy. And that's really important.
Do you have a
So
favorite
that's, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Do you have a favorite book yourself?
I do. I have several others. So they're actually behind me, but you can't really see. Abortion After Roe by Joanna Schoen is a really fantastic resource. It's like a little academic, but it's still very accessible. And it sort of chronicles the history of the years after Roe versus Wade and what it sort of looked like from a provider standpoint, which is really cool. Targets of Hatred, which is not a light, fun beach read, but basically chronicles every act of violence from anti-abortion terrorists from the beginning of Roe versus Wade up until 2000. And I also highly recommend Abortion Wars. It has a series of essays about sort of the fight culturally and socially over abortion. I think too often with this issue, we think about it in terms of like a political fight, right? Like the Democrats say or they're pro-choice and the Republicans say they're pro-life, but it's so much more nuanced than that. And the fight that has been happening at clinics isn't really visible all that often. And these books shed a light on that in a really unique way. So highly recommend. And Guttmacher Institute, get your life with those fact sheets. If you want to know some stuff, just read on through. They will tell you everything about every law in every state, and it will make you want to throw up.
Awesome. Well, again, not awesome, but thank you.
Yeah.
There are a lot of questions coming in. Okay, so what type of legal actions do you think we will see to replace Roe?
Great question. On the federal side, I'm going to be real blunt with y'all. Nothing. We're not going to see anything federally. That does not mean you should stop pushing your senator, your congressman, congresswoman, whatever. But I'm being realistic. Federally, no, nothing is going to happen to protect abortion. It's going to be up to us on an individual level, on a collective level, and on the state level. So right now, my state, Colorado, is advancing a bill to essentially codify Roe versus Wade into law, protect and enshrine abortion rights in this state. New York did the same thing in 2018, 2019. God, what year is it? And New Jersey is doing the same thing right now. Massachusetts has done this. It's really important for states that are, Illinois did it as well. For states that are really supportive of abortion rights, it's imperative that they pass these laws to codify Roe and enshrine abortion in their state, because that way, even if abortion is illegal in other places, there's still somewhere in the US to go. And we can funnel all of our energy, money, and resources into that. I do think, not to scare everyone, but I do think we will see prosecutions. We've already seen prosecutions of women of color for their pregnancy outcomes. Another organization we have supported here at AS4 is called the National Advocates for Pregnant Women, and they defend women, primarily women of color, who have been charged with feticide and sometimes murder for having a miscarriage, for using drugs while pregnant, for even Googling abortion or medication abortion. And they do really incredible work to support these women and non-binary folks and trans men to make sure that they don't end up in prison, because technically right now Roe is the law of the land, but I do think that we will see some of those. So it's really important that we pour our resources into organizations like NAPW that help defend those who need it.
We have Paxton Smith here with
Paxton.
a new advisory board member to AS4. She lives in Texas. Fantastic.
You might remember Paxton from being a legit baller who became hey Paxton, who became valedictorian of her Texas high school and was like, sit down, everybody. I'm going to use my speech to talk about abortion, which was amazing. So Paxton, you're your hero.
Awesome. She wants to shout out WRRAP, National
Women's Reproductive Rights Assistant Project. Yes.
State based on which states and clinics are facing the highest demand.
Yes. We'll put that in the chat for you guys as well. Yep. Good call there, Paxton.
Awesome. We have a primary care physician here, currently practicing in Texas, thanking us for bringing attention to all of these resources. What recommendations do you have for HC providers in Texas about what we should be doing to get this ridiculous law overturned?
Okay, first of all, shout out to you. Thank you for providing healthcare. Second of all, cannot believe that you are on this thing, not webinar, because Eric doesn't like that, with me. So I'm going to try my best with this one. I think first and foremost, your duty is always to your patient, right? So you said you're a primary care physician. I don't know if that means you're also an abortion provider. If you are not, but you have a patient who needs an abortion, being aware of where they can go and how they can access resources is really important. First and foremost, like we got to think about the person before we think about the law, because the law, even if it does end up overturned, it's doing untold damage right now. So familiarize yourself with funds in your state, in your area, and reach out to them. Like tell them who you are, tell them that you're a physician in the state and that you want to be supportive and want to be helpful and visible. In terms of getting the law overturned, the Supreme Court knows that this is illegitimate and looks bad, and they don't care. So the only thing that we have power-wise in terms of all that is what Justice Sonia Sotomayor did during oral arguments for the Mississippi ban, which was like, this shit stinks. Excuse my language, but like, come on now. This stinks. Am I allowed to swear?
You are.
Great. This smells bad. We know what you're doing. I see it. And from a human level of being a physician, you see what kind of suffering that causes in people. Call it out. I don't think that we're going to be able to like storm the gates of the Texas State House again, because you guys already did that in 2013, and have them, overturn this law. Oh, you're right. Like they're not going to do that, but naming it is really, really important. Because the more that we name it, the more other people see it. And the more other people see it, the more they start to realize, yeah, this is fishy. And that's how change happens, I think.
What do we need to be doing right now to get ready? Again, stockpile medication, abortion for ourselves, monthly donor of abortion access. What else?
Yes. I think steeling yourself for the reality of what's coming is also important. And looking beyond Roe. If Roe versus Wade does get overturned, people are going to be pissed, and rightfully so. But I think you need to be asking yourself, what am I willing to do if that happens? What am I willing to do? Am I willing to give my airline miles to someone who might need them to fly? Am I willing to purchase medication abortion for myself in case I need it? Am I willing to tell other people about how they can get medication abortion? No one gets to decide what you're willing to do but you. And we have power. We just don't know that we do. We
Sometimes
have,
the power is just in having a conversation about it
yes,
with people and using
just
the word
talking
appropriately.
about it. That's part of what we do is at AS4. And, having plays where abortion and other reproductive health outcomes are, our One Act Play Festival is such an amazing evidence of this. Talking about these things, you realize how normal they are, how many people have had them. But ask yourself, what am I willing to do? And really sit with that. And there is no wrong answer, besides like ratting on someone. Don't do that. But I think we can do a lot more than we think we can.
I do too, and we'll need to. Um, Lauren from Amelia Bono from Shout Your Abortion.
Hi, Amelia.
She asked, can you talk a little bit about the importance of indie clinics, especially that now that they provide the vast majority
Yes.
of later abortions?
Yes. Great question, Amelia. So many people who are supportive of abortion rights tend to use the phrase like, I stand with Planned Parenthood. Very important. Planned Parenthood does great stuff. But Planned Parenthood actually does not provide the majority of abortions in this country. That is done by independent clinics. So clinics that are independently owned. Our friends at Red River Women's Clinic in North Dakota, Fargo, North Dakota, owned by our friend Tammy Kromanacher. Whole Women's Health, who you might have heard of because they just keep trying to sue these assholes, run by our friend Amy Hagstrom Miller. Independent clinics perform the majority of abortions. And for the few later abortions, if you can take away one thing today, please make it this: late term abortion is not a thing. Don't say that. It's a made up, non-existent term that's meant to make people who have later abortions sound evil. So later abortions, and I'm talking about abortions well into the second, sometimes third trimester, are exceptionally rare, and done in really tragic and difficult cases. And there are only 4 remaining later abortion providers in the country. They are all at independent clinics. One of them is in Boulder, Colorado. My neighbor, Dr. Warren Hearn. Dr. George Tiller, you might know of, was one of them until he was killed in 2009. So it's really important that when we talk about supporting abortion rights, we are not just talking about Planned Parenthood, because that's not really where the bulk of this work happens. And the people who own and work at independent clinics, like the clinic that I was an escort at for 6 years, they lack a lot of the structural support that Planned Parenthood has. Planned Parenthood has an entire brand and an army behind it, as well it should, like everybody needs to have that support. But independent clinics don't have that. So fighting laws like this becomes extremely expensive for them and difficult. So it's really important. If you go to the Abortion Care Network, which is a wonderful organization that represents independent clinics, you can find an independent clinic near you, depending where you live. It might be fruitful to reach out and give them send them a card and say thanks for doing what you do. That stuff means something to these folks. And just remember that supporting Planned Parenthood is great, but that's literally the bare minimum that you can be doing right now. So step it up for indies.
Absolutely. How do we engage wealthy white women who voted for Trump?
Ooh.
How do we help them understand that it is all our fight, that this is a women's right issue?
Okay. All right. You're going to hate my answer. You're going to hate it. We don't. And I'm not saying these people are lost to time or are not worth engaging. But right now, we're in crisis. And in a crisis moment, your first and foremost responsibility is to the most vulnerable and the most marginalized. Those people didn't vote for Trump. So what we need to do is really think about, instead of appealing to this Phyllis Schlafly goal, think about how do we actually reframe this issue. Sure, it is a women's rights issue. It's not just women who have abortions, but this is a fundamental human right. And if you can't access it, why can't you access it? who can't access it and why. And you start to realize that wealthy white women for a long period of time don't give a shit because they know they can get an abortion if they need one. And it's really imperative that for me, I'm just speaking personally and honestly, that we don't waste our time trying to rope them back into this and instead say, okay, you want to be over here doing the fascist stuff? Cool. I'm going to be here trying to address emergency needs for the people who need it most. And they're either going to come along or they're not. There's always going to be a Phyllis Schlafly. And the less we pay attention to those people, and I don't mean like ignore the threat. The threat is real and we should be aware of it. But the less we focus our energy on trying to convert them, and the more we spend our energy trying to mobilize marginalized people who can't access the abortion they need, I think we're going to be doing a lot better. It's similar to, should we be trying to get those people to vote again for the Democrats instead of registering a bunch of people of color and, ending the filibuster? I'm sure Kirsten Sinema didn't join us today, but.
Yeah, that doesn't seem to be working very well. Let's see. Carrie Ann says, I think more content that shows abortion not being taboo is helpful to normalize. I'll just take a moment here to promote our, Lauren mentioned it, our One Act Festival every year. Well, this is the second year we've had it. We've solicited for One Act plays from all over the country, all over the world, really, for playwrights to write about reproductive justice. And this year we received 252 plays. We had a wonderful jury made up of some really great people: David Cromer, Jonathan Mark Sherman, Lindy West, Rihanna Yazzie, Chris Eli Black, and Jill Filipovic. All were our judges, and we picked the 3 winners. And you can find out about that on our website. We're hoping to present the plays in February or March, possibly, and we'll have all that information on our website, as4.org. I'm really proud of it, and I just wanted to respond to this because I think that that's one of the things we hope to do at AS4.
Yes.
To literally, our mission is to work against stigma against abortion, because I believe that through the arts, and especially through theater, is a great platform to sort of shake up the way people think. And the more we have these conversations about actual human beings and get away from political dogma and binary talking points, all of that crap, we can actually begin to see each other and begin to feel empathy. And I think the climate can shift that way. So that's just a brief plug for the things that we're doing specifically to address what you just said. Oh, and I'm so excited. We have Dr. Rebecca Gomperts joining us.
Yay!
From the Netherlands. Thank you, because it's very late right now where you are. I am so happy you're here. I'm going to read a brief bio for you because I just want people to understand how wonderful you are. Dr. Gomperts is the founder and director of Women on Waves and Women on Web. She studied medicine, visual arts in Amsterdam. She is the founder of Aid Access, a site that allows people in the United States to get abortions at or before 10 weeks with the help of 10 US-based providers. Welcome. Hi.
Hi, sorry.
No, you're great. We're just talking. We have a lot of questions. Let me finish the question that I was asking, though, and maybe you both can jump in here. What shows or movies have you seen that have an accurate depiction of abortion? She says she loves Shrill on Hulu. Lindy West. That was her show.
We love a Lindy West moment.
Do you have a favorite?
This is such a great question. I'm just going to take it real quick because Advancing New Standards in Reproductive Health is a research organization based in San Francisco, and they actually do annual research on abortion depictions in TV and film, and it's been getting better. Yay! Funnily enough, as everything has tanked legally here, the depictions have gotten better, but that is something to cheer. So I really love the movie with Jenny Slate. Oh my God, what the hell is the name of that movie? Oh my God.
If you hadn't asked
it's a rom-com about abortion.
It's a really
Obvious Child. It's Obvious Child. So fun. But if you want to find out more, other fun things at TV and you want to read about this research, I'm going to put it in the chat. Head over to Answer. They have really great resources on this, and you can learn a lot about their process and why they think it's important to study this. We certainly do.
Where to pivot to now? I just want to make sure that please ask questions if you have them for Dr. Gomperts while she's here.
I do think it'd be really great if Dr. Gomperts could talk about, we got some questions at the top about stockpiling Miffy and Miso for others.
Yeah.
And I said, I encourage you to do legal things, so buy them for yourselves. But could you tell us a little bit about how aid access works and if it's accessible in all states and what that looks like for folks?
Yes. Okay. So aid access is accessible to all the US states. It's divided between some of the providers. We were at aid access has around 9 US providers that are serving the states where they're registered to help. And I am and one European provider, which is me, which is doing the rest of the states. And so we started providing advanced provision, as we call it, in September, so that anybody who wants to have the abortion pills at hand, like they have the emergency contraceptive pills, that we support that, so women can apply for the medication before that they're actually pregnant, because it's a form of being prepared to if you have an unwanted pregnancy. Yeah, so that's possible. Yeah,
I love that. If you have, you have aspirin in the house in case you have a headache.
yeah. Exactly, it's the same. It's very similar. Or if you have, in a sense, vaccines are the same, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where you're protecting yourself, or when you're traveling to a country where you know that you might have a diarrhea, that you take anti-diarrhea medication with you, or to protect yourself against malaria by taking malaria prophylactics, or having emergency contraceptives in your house, will be the same.
I have another question about someone had asked this before about do these drugs have an expiration date?
Yeah, they do. Mifepristone has actually has a very long shelf life, which is about 5 years. The Misoprostol has a shorter shelf life. But the interesting thing is that it's the Mifepristone that is so restricted by the FDA, where there's still a REMS in place. But Misoprostol, which is also known as Cytotec, it's available on prescription of any doctor, so there's no restrictions in place there. So and that has the shorter shelf life, but both basically have quite a long shelf life. And of course, I mean, if people are able to protect themselves from having an unwanted pregnancy, I think that's preferred. On the other hand, we all know that the existing contraceptives have a lot of side effects, and some women just don't want to use it. So I think it's good to have everything at hand, whether it's emergency contraceptives, condoms, contraceptives, whenever it suits you, at which moment it suits you, so that women are really in charge and that they are the one to make the decision what they use when.
That's great. I have a question for you, Rebecca, from Amelia Bono of Shout Your Abortion. She asks,
Yeah.
Do you foresee more overseas pharmacies popping up to meet the emerging need in the U.S.? And how can people in the U.S. support aid access?
So I think it already happened for a long time that there were overseas suppliers of abortion pills. They might have been real pharmacies or not, but Plan C has done a lot of research on this. There's also people that are actually obtaining medicines from abroad and having it in the US as a supply, and then providing it to women in the US. Of course, what happens everywhere when abortion gets more restricted is that you have alternative sources that become available. And I think it's really important it does. And overall, most of the services that are available, they are providing actual abortion pills. I think the difference with aid access is that it's not. So we are a service really looking at how we can support women the best way we can. And one of the things that we do, for example, is that we make sure that the prescriptions that they have more misoprostol in there than the standard treatment, because the research has shown that that when you do repeated doses of misoprostol, it's more effective. And because there's doctors supervising the service, they might give a better service. But there's also the M&A hotline in the US, which women can call. So if they got the medicines from other suppliers, they can always get advice about how to use them in the most effective way. So they can always reach out to the M&A hotline. Wonderful. How they can support aid access, I think that making it known to women, sharing the information is very important, because Google algorithms are designed now in a way that many people cannot find access to the medicines, because Google doesn't want them to find the medicines per se. And so it's very important that grassroots organizations, any organization, that they inform women about the possibility of using aid access. And actually what we do when women reach out to us, we make sure that they have all the information available. So we refer them to Plan C. We explain to them that it might be stressful to wait for the medicines to arrive, because sometimes it takes some weeks. So it's about knowledge, and I think that is where now most of the inequality comes from: who has the knowledge and those that don't have. And I think the women that do have, or the people that do have the knowledge that you can have the abortion pills, that they're safe to use, that you can use them at home with the proper information and guidance, that they have the responsibilities, the feminist responsibilities, the social responsibility to make sure that other people know it as well, and that they can have it in order to support other women that need it.
And I will also say, since Rebecca hasn't, if you can donate to aid access as well, because that money helps fund medication abortion for folks who can't afford it. So yeah. The link is in the chat. If you want to go visit their website, highly recommend it.
Yeah, so the way aid access works, and that's very different from the kind of the online pharmacist, because we see it as an essential medical service and not as as a business, so that all the women will get the medicines, even if they cannot afford to pay what we ask them. If they can afford $100 or $110 US, if they cannot afford it, they will still get the medicines, because we feel that it's such it's an emergency situation, a medical emergency situation. So you cannot deny anybody the help because they don't have the money. And most pharmacies won't do that. They won't give women or people that are having an unwanted pregnancy the medicines for free.
Just so everybody knows, all of these organizations and URLs are being put into the chat.
Yeah, thanks.
And also this webinar is being recorded, and we'll post it on our website, as4.org, and you will be able to access it later and watch it again, or have other people share it with people who can see it for the first time. Let me go back to some of the previous questions that I skipped over. Okay, so some people think that the Supreme Court decision, the inevitable decision, I assume you mean, about overturning Roe, might motivate young voters to get to the polls. What do you think about that, Lauren, Rebecca?
Oh, I don't think the issue is so much motivation to get to the polls, but a lack of understanding about what we're facing here. I think, I hope it will. I was saying to Kelly before we went live, technically, I'm a millennial. I'm a geriatric millennial. Thank you very much. But I don't think it's that young voters don't care about this issue. I think it's that young people have been told in conversations politically, socially, this issue is solved. It's fine. Roe versus Wade is never going anywhere. It's fine. I do think if Roe versus Wade is overturned, there will be a seismic negative reaction. I certainly hope that there will. But I once again, I want to encourage us to think outside of voting and legislation. Voting is important. I did not tell you otherwise. Go vote. But there are so many things we can do that do not depend on changing a law right now. And those things we need to do right now. We need to pour money into organizations like Aid Access, like abortion funds. We need to let people know that these things exist. So that instead of putting all of our eggs once again into the Supreme Court basket, the Supreme Court isn't going to save us, guys. It's not going to. It never was. We can save ourselves. We have the ability. I mean, Rebecca Gomperts sailed a boat around the world and then got people from countries where abortion was legal past the maritime border. If she can do that, you can give $50 to an abortion fund right now.
Yeah, we're really in the time of thinking outside the box to deal with this. Amelia wanted to mention if you want to support indie clinics, donate to keepourclinics.org. I'm not.
Oh,
sure
yes, I'll put that in the chat.
Okay, great. And she says that Keep Our Clinics is a centralized fundraiser administered by Abortion Care Network, which delegates funds to the indie clinics who are the most desperately in need of funds. That's wonderful. We might have both being put things in the chat. We might duplicate, Lauren, but that's okay. I have a question. Let's see. Support an independent clinic in Kentucky. Ona Marshall. I think Ona, we have talked before. EMW Women's Surgical Center, plaintiffs in all lawsuits protecting reproductive rights in the state. 6-week ban, D&E ban, race, sex, and disability ban, transport agreement, waiting on decision from the U.S. Supreme Court on a case heard in October. Kentucky and Cameron v. EMW. This clinic has one of the worst protester problems in the U.S. Lauren, do you know about that?
You sure do. So EMW is featured prominently in my book because EMW is the only clinic left in Kentucky. It's in Louisville, in downtown Louisville. And it has faced, just bonkers kinds of protests. Operation Save America, which is a spinoff of Operation Rescue, which was the organization that blockaded clinics in the 80s and the 90s, has targeted EMW on more than one occasion. And their clinic escorts are badass. They are amazing and they do not stop. So if you can support that clinic, and they're the nonstop shop in Kentucky. That's it. There's nowhere else. So just all the love to EMW. They're an independent abortion clinic, and they could use your support. Their protests have been horrific. There was a blockade there a few years ago. Protesters sat down in front of the clinic and wouldn't leave. And it was horribly distressing for folks. So thank you very much for all that you do.
I have a really great question, I think, for Rebecca. Okay.
Yeah.
In the event of an emergency, will healthcare providers be able to tell the difference between self-medicated abortions and a miscarriage? What questions will they ask, and what answers should we give?
Yeah. So the amazing thing about the abortion pills is that depending on how you use them, there's no way that any healthcare provider can see the difference between a miscarriage and an induced abortion. What's important is that standard use is that they use it vaginally, the second tablet. But if you use it, sorry. But if you use it under the tongue or in the cheek, they dissolve and they just disappear. When women use it in the vaginas, then you can find remains there. So that is why Aid Access is always advising women to use the misoprostol, which is the second part of the treatment. So a medical abortion treatment works like this. You swallow one pill, which is called Mifepristone, and then 24 hours later, you take another tablet, medicines, which is called misoprostol, and you need four tablets of 200 micrograms. And the standard treatment is that people use it in the vagina, but we advise them, and it's equally effective. It's under the tongue or in the cheeks. And that way, no healthcare provider can find it, because actually the biggest risk to women in the US or anywhere in the world where abortion is criminalized is other healthcare providers that are denouncing people that are using the medicines. There's another organization called If, Now, and When, who are giving legal support if women would face any harassment from healthcare or from any enforcement agency.
I'll put it in the chat.
Yeah, that would be nice. So no, an abortion with medicines is very similar to a miscarriage, and it's extremely safe. Yeah, so it's very important that women know that they can do an abortion themselves safely and privately. Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
How are we going to educate teens, especially people who are 12, 13, 14? How are we going to let them know how to get access to abortion? They may not even be getting sex education. How do we tell them the pills are common and safe?
TikTok.
Are you on TikTok, Dr. Gomperts?
No, but there is actually another US provider for Aid Access who is on TikTok, because all the kids are using TikTok nowadays. Facebook is for millennials or even older people. So social media, Instagram, share the information, because Google is the algorithms of Google are now designed in a way that anything that is not representing official government information will not be you can't find, or it's very lowly ranked. So that is why other social organizations have to do it, and people have to share it. What we know is that Reddit is working very well, where people are using for information and looking for information as well.
Great. Dr. Gomperts, are pills now being shipped to the Philippines? Someone thinks that they were being stopped at customs. Do you know about that?
No, it's true. Philippines is really difficult. Aid Access, but mostly Women on Web, has tried to find ways to get the medicines into the Philippines, but they're very the customs are not letting them through. So the Philippines and Brazil are a big problem at the moment, but the US is not, because in the US there's this fundamental right of people, the right to privacy of their personal communication, and that concerns especially also mail. So there hasn't been any problems with the mail in the US.
Great.
I saw a question I think we missed earlier. That only reason that it reached out to me is because it said living in the South, and I'm from the South.
Oh, yeah. I was trying to get to everybody.
I'm sorry, Kelly.
No.
Are you moderating?
No, not very well. If you can find it. Oh, I see.
Yeah, living in the South, I see all kinds of anti-choice billboards, but never see pro-choice, pro-women billboards or ads. Don't you think we should be more out there with our cause? I am from the South. I'm from Jacksonville, Florida, and I remember growing up, there still are, but tons of license plate that the state of Florida actually produces that say choose life, and that money goes to anti-abortion, anti-choice pregnancy centers. So I think you're right that, like, yes, those billboards are everywhere because there's so much money behind those organizations, but there actually are some billboards on the opposite side. They're probably not in Florida, but our friends at Sister Reach, which is a Black women's reproductive justice organization in Tennessee, created this amazing billboard campaign. They're like, your abortion bans are racist. You're racist for supporting this. I think that's one thing to do. I think it's lovely and amazing when we can do that. But I also think what Rebecca is saying, there's a lot of value and heft in one-on-one individual contact, and like making a TikTok video. I'm not on TikTok because I'm old, but you know, like even just talking to someone about abortion in a human way, as opposed to pro-choice, pro-life, breaking it down in those, like, this is a human issue. It's human. And when you talk to people on that level, I think that more than a billboard is actually going to help change hearts and minds. But yeah, if you're on TikTok, make that video and share it to me on Instagram or something that I'm on, because I don't know.
I just shared a Reddit link that somebody, that Rebecca, so we have one of the moderators here, so she shared that with me here. Did I ask this question for Martha Plimpton? Can indie clinics make use of aid access?
Yes.
You didn't ask that, but good question.
So, so anybody that has a pregnancy below 9 weeks or 10 weeks of pregnancy, they can use aid access and apply for the abortion pills. I hope that many people would do so in advance. So yeah. So I think that the message that we're really serious about is that there's a broader problem in the US, which is not only about access to abortion, it's about healthcare in general. The healthcare system in general in the US is pretty broken. So many people don't have a healthcare insurance. Abortion is not covered by healthcare insurances in many states, not by Medicaid. And that means that, that the costs are really high. Doctors are scared because they are scared of the litigation that is happening. There's a lot, it's a very litigated society where people are being prosecuted and doctors are being denounced, even if it's not, you know, real or there's no reason for it. For example, the insurances of doctors are extremely high. So the problem about abortion is not just about abortion access, it's about generally how the healthcare system is broken, as is the legal system in the US. And so therefore they're not simple answers, right? I mean, a lot of the indie clinics, they're really doing their best to provide care with a lot of compassion to so many people, but they are within the system. So they have to comply with the system that's in place. And that makes them also fearful sometimes to inform people of systems that are outside the system of the United States, which like aid access in the States where telemedical abortion is not allowed, which is using the loopholes that are available to me as a European provider. So there's not just one answer to many questions. Sometimes it's more complicated than just one simple answer. And I think that what I always try to remember and what I learn my team is that we always just look at the needs of the women and the pregnant people that reach out to us. What are their needs and how can we fulfill them?
This is interesting. Not a question, just a statement. Someone mentioned the Google algorithm not showing important abortion information.
Yeah.
I've noticed since having my abortion, I'm reading this, and of course, researching thoroughly on my phone, Instagram, Google now show me pregnancy, baby, and motherhood content. Oh my gosh. Almost like it's curated content to make me feel worse. How is this in anyone's best interest? Who is profiting from this?
That's wild.
That is
I'm not
wild.
surprised, unfortunately. I wrote an article for Fast Company a couple years ago about the internet being used to help criminalize women of color who have abortions, miscarriages, a whole bunch of things. But it's wild when you actually go down the rabbit hole of geofencing that's happening around clinics. So some places, if you walked, if you get within a certain number of feet of a clinic, anti-abortion organizations have already created things that will bombard your phone with like baby shit. I don't think it's not about profiting from it. It's really, I think you're absolutely right that it's meant to make you feel as terrible as possible. And you don't have to, because you had an abortion and you needed one, and that's awesome. But it's really meant to just serve as a shame and blame source, and it's disgusting. I'm sorry that you had to experience that.
I am too. I mean, it's all advertising, I guess. They're just trying to figure out.
No, and it's not just advertising, because actually Google doesn't allow abortion rights groups to advertise.
It's very true.
So the problem is, if it was just advertisement, then we would, as abortion rights groups, we would be able to put something in there to also get our advertisements out there, but that's not allowed. Google doesn't allow that in many states. So it's just one side of the story that you're seeing and hearing. And of course, also the resources that these groups have at their disposal, they're so much higher than any abortion rights group. Because there's just a lot of financial support for the anti-abortion rights groups. So that's also where the information is very skewed, and it also reflects, like, there are more anti-abortion counseling centers in the US than there are abortion clinics.
Way more, way more.
That is the reality, and that is so shocking, like, per definition. So all the women that go to the pregnancy help centers, they are where, you know, somebody thinks, like, I'm going to get neutral information about my pregnancy, and they're just talking you into keeping the pregnancy and giving you wrong information. So if you have an ultrasound, they show you, like, there's a heartbeat when there is none. And they're just feeding you really not neutral information and wrong information. And it's extremely upsetting, actually.
What's even more sinister is there are, I think, maybe 3 or 4 times the number of clinics for CPCs, crisis pregnancy centers, but they deliberately buy property right next to or across the street from clinics. So if you're going to the clinic and you're Googling, like, you might not remember the name of the clinic you're dealing with, getting an abortion at that moment. You might be like, Women's Health Center.
Yeah.
And the place calls itself like Women's Health and Care or something. They have deliberately misleading names so that you get confused, you miss your appointment, and you end up there where then they tell you all sorts of horrible, untrue stuff. It's pretty vile.
And the other thing is, they are actually also having, like, all these apps where they're the menstrual tracking apps.
Yes.
That are hosted by the anti-abortion groups.
Yes.
That are using your information to inform the anti-abortion groups when you're off, when you miss your period.
That is
and they already inform the anti-abortion
Delete those
groups.
apps, people. Delete them now.
Yeah, make sure that the apps that you have are actually neutral and that they don't do that. They're not from the anti-abortion groups. It's way more pervasive than anybody can even imagine it is.
It's incredibly insidious. Amelia recommends DuckDuckGo.
DuckDuckGo is great.
Yeah.
It's a much better search engine.
Private, so use that instead of Google.
Yeah, or Tor, or you can also go to Tor. It's called Onion Tor. They use it like a VPN. Yeah.
Regarding the limitation of advertising against abortion access, somebody's asking, is there a way to protest that?
Oh.
Oh, I love that. I love that spirit. Keep that spirit. Don't lose that.
I mean,
even if we're like, no, because capitalism is everywhere and it's horrible, but keep that energy.
Yeah.
I don't know that there is a formal way to protest that, but even making people aware of it and
it's a form of protest.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. But also, I mean, if you're really interested, I think that at some point, all the abortion rights groups, they have to come to together to sue Google, to be honest. we have to go after Google for putting these algorithms in place that are making it so hard for people to find neutral information about abortion.
I think there is an app. Oh, you just put it in.
I just put it in.
Yuki,
Yeah.
that's it. Yuki. Yes, Yuki is an app you can use that was created by like abortion rights folks. It will keep your info private and stuff. It's way better. So don't use like Baby Mama 123 app or whatever. Use Yuki if you're gonna track your period. Someone asked about the ERA.
Oh, that's right. That's the one I think I did miss. I apologize. So, how do you think that the Equal Rights Amendment will be impacted by this, or will impact this?
I don't think it will impact it because I don't think it will happen. I'm so sorry. I sound like such a depressing little monkey, but
No,
I do think if the ERA were to pass, it would be so. The problem, one of the legal problems for abortion is that it's predicated, Roe versus Wade, the decision was predicated on the right to privacy, which Rebecca already mentioned. That fundamental right that was not established in Roe versus Wade, but established in Griswold v. Connecticut in 1965. That ruling said that you have a right, if you're married, to contraception. You have a fundamental right to privacy. So many other rights have been built on this right to privacy, including same-sex marriage, including striking down sodomy laws. The problem is old white dudes don't really care about your privacy. They don't care. So if Roe versus Wade is struck down, it completely unravels much of the judicial history of the right to privacy. The ERA, if it did become law, would codify, and by codify, I mean it would enshrine in law that it's illegal to discriminate against people based on sex. You cannot do it. That women and people who don't, non-binary folks and trans men, people who have uteruses, have the same fundamental rights as those who don't. That could provide a different sort of legal framework for protecting abortion. But at this point, the law that's way down the line if we even get there. Right now, I think it's, once again, crisis mode and doing what we can within the constraints that we have right now.
Yeah.
We have come to, it looks like, the end of our questions, unless people have more. And we're almost at an hour and a half, which is, I think, a pretty nice time. Rebecca, would you like to say anything else before we let you go to sleep?
Yes, it's late here. It's 12:15. I don't know. It's so hard to say something because it feels like I think everybody feels like their democratic rights are being totally undermined and nobody's rights are taken into account. And that especially the US has been taken over by a minority of extreme religious right-wing people that have placed themselves of people of positions of power. I really, I mean, that is how I see it. I don't know how you do see it, but and it's very disheartening and very disempowering to have a situation like that, because what can you do against it, right? When the Supreme Court would decide that Roe versus Wade is not anymore, and that abortion is not a constitutional right anymore. I can only say that from our experience, it was already a problem before. Yeah. So the problem was that many women and many people are living under the poverty threshold, and they could not afford an abortion even though it was legal. Because in many states, the insurance or the Medicaid didn't cover abortion care. And that meant that women and people that had an unwanted pregnancy that live under the poverty threshold, they have to pay for it themselves. And $500 or $600 is a fee that many people cannot afford to pay if you are living beyond the poverty threshold. So
the problem has been there for a long time already. It's just that a larger group of people is now going to suffer the consequences. And people that would not have thought before that they would suffer the consequence, because now instead of $600, you need $1,200 in order to get access to an abortion in a state like Texas, because you need to be able to cover the traveling cost and other costs. So it's just a larger group of people that are suffering the consequences. And I mean, to undo that justice is so much more. It's beyond abortion rights. It's beyond voting rights even, but it's definitely also about voting rights and how these are being undermined. But it's about, you know, in a sense, it's about trying to resist the changes in a system and in a society the way they are now, and to fight them and to try to create alternative realities. And in order to create alternative realities, you can do that by, for example, getting the abortion pills on hand before you're pregnant, and that you can help friends if you know that they're pregnant and they need care. But that also concerns many other things that other people might need. Yeah, so, but I feel for you. I know it's happening everywhere in the world, so it's not the US only. It's happening in Turkey, it's happening in Russia. It's also happening in some European countries like Poland,
Hungary.
And it's a trend that we're facing, and we need to work together and to get together in order to stop that.
Well, I am certainly, and we are all certainly grateful for you joining us today to start a conversation about it, because I think, you know, in this way we do plant seeds of resistance, you know.
Yeah, resilience.
And
Yes.
resilience.
Yeah.
Lauren, do you have anything you would like to?
Yeah, I think the only thing I'll say here is the more I've read in researching for my own book and generally in American history, the window of time in which the Supreme Court didn't totally suck has been very small.
Yes.
So let's keep in mind.
Perspective.
Yeah. And well, yes. And people have been resisting and finding ways to build mutual collective ways to support each other outside of the Supreme Court since the beginning of this nation. People have been having abortions since the beginning of time, and they will keep having abortions. It is up to all of us who are here right now to make sure that those abortions are safe. We cannot fix the law right now. We can't change what's going to happen on the Supreme Court, but we can change if our neighbor knows we're a safe place to come if they need information. We can change that. And that is power. It might not look like it right now, but that is power. And please don't forget that we don't wear the robes, but we are the reason that this right still exists in the tiny fractured way that it does. And we can keep doing that work to make sure that more people don't have to suffer.
I really love ending it on a positive note tonight. Thank you so much, Lauren. Thank you so much, Dr. Gomperts. I would be remiss if I did not mention that you may also donate to AS4 at aisfor.org. We have a lot of interesting programs going on right now, and we'd like you to come visit us when we present those. Thank you all for being here. Again, this is being recorded, and we're going to post it on our website so you can watch it again, and you can share it with some of your friends if they weren't able to be here tonight. And we're just really grateful for your questions and your attention and your support, and have a really lovely evening.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody. Thank you. Bye.